All aboard. The Bear Bachmeier hype train is leaving the station, everybody. And if you're a Cougar fan, I suggest you get on board with BYU's new freshman phenom.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. I'm Jake Hatch, executive producer of the KSL Sports Zone in Salt Lake City, Utah, and a 14-year credentialed media member at BYU. I am your resident expert and insider, your host here on this podcast. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Coming up on today's show, we're going to be talking about all things Bear Bachmeier. BYU had an open scrimmage for the Cougar Club membership last night, and reports that I received from multiple people that I trust, because their eyes, I trust what they see. They think that Bear Bachmeier is everything BYU hopes he is. We'll talk about that and the impact that could have on BYU football. Then we're going to catch up with a guy who's going to be tasked with protecting Bear Bachmeier, that being Austin Leausa. Had a great conversation with him earlier on in camp. You'll hear that today. And then, as we always do on Fridays, we're answering your questions. Our Locked On Cougars Insider group have filled the mailbag, and we're going to get to all those ahead on today's show. It's all brought to you today by our friends over at FanDuel. Get started today with our friends at FanDuel. The best part is football season around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets for their futures day, which is coming up later this month. All right, let's talk all things BYU. Now, the scrimmage last night was open to Cougar Club members. Now, as I understand it, some friends of mine that were in attendance were saddened that I was not in attendance. I understand that some other media members that actually did go down to Lavelle Edwards Stadium. I was under the impression that that was kind of a no-go as a media member, but hey, nonetheless, talking with people, and there are two in particular that I really appreciate their insight on BYU football. Let's just put it this way. They have watched a lot of football. They have obviously got a good sense for what BYU has, and I trust them because their track record is pretty strong. And they had a bit of a contrasting opinion on Bear Bachmeier. One of them is absolutely all on board with what Bear Bachmeier is capable of as BYU starting quarterback, because they, for lack of a better term, declared him QB1. Now, that's not official from BYU's coaches. That obviously will come in time if that is indeed the case. The other one was a bit concerned with a couple of miscues by Bachmeier, but still remains high on his potential, but they still believe it's a competition with him and McKay Hillstead. I think the more I look at this, the more I talk to people, the more I analyze the situation, it's going to be Bear Bachmeier as BYU starting quarterback to start the season. The schedule lays out very nicely to put a first-time quarterback out there and let them take their lumps. Does that mean it's going to come with inevitable struggles? Yes. Are there going to be likely to be interceptions and other miscues because of the youth and inexperience of a guy who last played at the high school level, coming up to the Power 4 level and making a start? Yeah, that absolutely is going to be in the mix here. But I think the potential outweighs the overall risk that BYU is looking at here. You open up against Portland State, where our friends at FanDuel have installed BYU as a 34.5 favorite. That's 5 touchdowns to get the to cover the spread for BYU in that game. Following week, Stanford comes to town. As I've said multiple times, Stanford, bit of a rebuild mode. They've got an interim head coach trying to figure things out for the Cardinal. And then you have a road trip to East Carolina that obviously has its own challenges. But then the early part of the Big 12 slate, going up against Colorado, Arizona, and West Virginia, those are winnable games. This is a schedule that is, if you're going to have to, or not have to, if you're going to install a first-time freshman quarterback who is in line to make BYU football history as the first true freshman to start a game, the first game of their career at BYU, I think this is the perfect time to do just that. And as I said, the two different individuals who I trust, and I appreciate everybody who reached out. Trust me, I had a number of you send me notes, and I do appreciate it. I love having my eyes and ears, quite literally, in the stands, watching things when I'm not able to be there. But the bigger point remains that BYU sure looks like it's going to be the Bear Bachmeier show here in 2025. As I said, there is an inevitability that there are going to be struggles with him as a first-time starter, but easing him in right from the get-go, he'd be following in the footsteps of his older brother, Hank. If I recall, Hank started the very first game of his career at Boise State. If they play USF or UCF, and I think it was an absolute barn burner of a game. It's years and years ago, but it's etched in my brain how well he performed. So this is not uncommon for the Bachmeier family to come in, make an early impression, seize a hold of a job, and if he follows the path of Hank Bachmeier, being at least a solid, if not spectacular quarterback at some level. I can appreciate all of that. And I think that's why BYU is banking on the upside of Bear Bachmeier, making up for what, as I mentioned, will likely be some mistakes early on in his freshman campaign. The other flip side of it is I believe that BYU has a lot of veterans. We're talking veteran running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, offensive linemen who are all there, and their collective veteran nature should be able to buoy up a guy like Bear Bachmeier and help him through some of those struggles. He's not going to have to put the entire team on his back. He's not going to have to carry the load. He understands he's got good backs to hand the ball off to. He's got good wide receivers and tight ends to get the ball to in space to make plays in the passing game. And he's got an offensive line, as you're going to hear momentarily from Austin Leausa, who is ultra motivated to go out and replicate last year's success on the offensive front, if not outdo it. I think all of this, just to kind of sum up my whole thought on this matter, is that BYU is betting on Bear Bachmeier being the antithesis of what Utah had with Isaac Wilson a season ago. Now, I will also say this. Isaac Wilson dealt with a coordinator change mid-season. He dealt with a system that was built for one quarterback, which the type of quarterback he is not. But the bigger situation is I think Aaron Roderick has continuity. He's not going anywhere. And I think that the BYU staff, players, everybody around Bear Bachmeier, they're bought in, at least from my vantage point, into the thought of making sure that they do everything within their power, controlling the controllables that they can control, and help this young man succeed, with the whole thought that maybe by the time Game 7 gets here and you kick off that four-game stretch that I believe is going to be the toughest stretch of the season, he's far more comfortable in terms of running the overall offense, having command of it, and also making plays that can help BYU hopefully beat the likes of a Utah, a Texas Tech, Iowa State, or a TCU. We'll see how it all goes, but as I said in the open of today's show, sure feels like that hype train, it's leaving the station, and I would suggest y'all get on board. All right, coming up next, as I mentioned, Austin Leausa had some really, really strong thoughts on the performance that he believes the BYU offensive line can have this year, even though they're replacing 3 of 5 starters from a season ago. He also has a bold declaration for BYU's running backs in particular you're not going to want to miss, and we'll get to that next right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Wayfair. Summer winds down. There's something nice about getting back into the routine you love. I can tell you my kids are back in school, and the routine, it feels a lot better to have that routine locked in. The best part is Wayfair makes it easy to set yourself up for the season ahead. And the best part is, from bedding to linen to storage solutions for every room, Wayfair is your one-stop shop to refresh your home during this period. Obviously, we all have different things we need in our lives. I can tell you not that long ago, my wife and I updated a bathroom, and the best part about it, Wayfair, the options for that, got options for your bedroom, kitchen, no matter what you're trying to refresh or upgrade, they've got options for you guys, and it's the perfect time to get your home ready, whether it's organizing, upgrading your workspace, or making weeknight dinners that much easier. Get organized, refreshed, and be back to the routine for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to get all things home. That's our friends over at Wayfair, WAAYFAIR, wayfair.com. It's all courtesy of friends over at Wayfair, every style, and of course, every home. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Appreciate all y'all who have been subscribing, rating, and reviewing, and sharing with your family and friends. And the other thing I should pass along is that we are having just an incredible response in terms of the social media interaction. I've tried to be more proactive on that front. So thank you just for everything, the support you guys give the show, even our Ute brethren who apparently don't like to actually watch podcasts, but, TLDR, take headlines and, have fun with it. All publicity is good publicity. Let's just put it that way. All right. Beyond that, BYU's offensive line has got a lot to prove this year. Losing guys like Connor Pay, Braden Kime, also Caleb Etienne from last year. Those are all three very, very strong and multi-year starters for the BYU football program. Well, insert guys like Andrew Gentry, Isaiah Jota, Bruce Mitchell. His ascension as an offensive lineman continues, but a guy that his versatility, I think, is his calling card, and he'll actually address this in the interview we're about to play, is the Austin Leausa. Now, many of you don't know maybe the background of Austin Leausa. He went to Southern Utah University and played very, very well for the Thunderbirds. Then he decided to hit the transfer portal. This is let's say 3 or 4 years ago. Hits the transfer portal, ultimately settles on going to Utah State, and as he tells it, had kind of fallen out of love with the game. He thought he was done. He and his wife had their first child. They actually have 2 now, which they're beautiful little. I think he's got 2 daughters, if I recall. But he was essentially done with football. Decided, you know what? I'm not done. And so decided to go back to Southern Utah, as I understand it, and then hit the transfer portal once again and landed, as he calls it, his dream school in Brigham Young University. It's been a interesting path for him, but Austin's capable of playing any position it feels like other than center on the offensive line. That's 4 different positions, and I wouldn't even put it past him to be able to slot in at center if need be. That's how good he is as a versatile offensive lineman. He's been spending a lot of time with the first string offense from what I have seen during practices at guard. He's even played some tackle, but that ability to be interchangeable, and no matter where BYU needs him to line up on the offensive line, be able to contribute and do it at a high level, that's a great thing to have as your skill set. And that is, I think, what a guy like Austin Leausa brings to this program is versatility. It also doesn't hurt the fact that he's got some strong opinions on BYU's running backs. He's got strong opinions on how good this offensive line can be. And without further ado, I'm going to let you guys hear from him right now. And we started off, the audio got a little choppy right out the chute. So I'm going to essentially tee it up by essentially asking the first question. I asked him how camp was going.
I think camp's going pretty good. We're doing a lot of great things as an offensive line, but more importantly as a team. I think we're coming together a lot more than we did in the spring. But overall, we're just moving in the right direction. So that's the goal.
I talked to Coach Woods about a week ago, right when camp was kind of kicking off, and he mentioned the fact he liked the versatility of everybody in this room. And you've been playing some guard, you've played tackle here in your time. Do you pride yourself on that versatility?
Yeah, I think it's a big step that Coach Woods has implemented in my game personally. I know that he's, I've always wanted me to play left and right side and swing out there at tackle as well. So that's been a big help in my game, but also, I just want to do anything I can to help the team.
Is part of that because you're thinking about a professional type future, like thinking about the versatility you could offer to the NFL, et cetera?
Yeah, I definitely, I definitely want to try. It's always been a goal of mine. I'm not going to hang my hat if I don't get the opportunity. I'm going to keep pushing, keep moving forward, but it's definitely a goal of mine to get there.
How much better can this offensive line be than maybe the offensive line last year?
We were pretty good last year.
I was going to say.
We were a tight-knit group, but I think, honestly, the versatility with this group and the ways that we can have, and we're deep. We have a lot of good offensive linemen here. It's still up in the air who's going to be playing, but we're deep, and I think that's going to be very, very competitive in this league.
I know you haven't been at BYU very long, but you're a veteran player. You played a lot of football. Do you pride yourself on being one of those veteran voices in that room? Yeah,
I definitely think that that's something that Coach Woods has challenged me to be, is kind of be that father figure or, that older brother that the guys need. I know Waylon, Sonny, Jota and Gentry, they stepped into those roles as well, but just being there for them in any way, shape, or form that I can be, especially with the experience that I have.
We were talking to Coach Roderick. I think it was the second day of camp we had a chance to talk to him. He said, I think we should be able to run the football. Do you like hearing that from your offensive coordinators and offensive linemen?
Man, that's O-line's dream. We definitely want to be run heavy in this offense, and we know we do have some weapons on the outside, but it's an O-line's dream to run the ball any chance they can. So, yeah, I think we're going to do that a lot this year.
How good can LJ and Siona and these running backs be, in your opinion?
I think they're the best in the conference. No doubt in my mind. I think they can be not only the best in the conference, but some of the best backfield in the nation. So,
why? What's your reasoning for that?
Man, there's just the off-season work that we put in with the strength staff. They did a great job with getting us right, putting us in the right positions to be great, and we've just carried that over to fall camp, from spring ball to summer conditioning and now to fall camp.
Last thing for me is you are a transfer into this program. What's your experience at BYU been like since coming up from Southern Utah? And obviously you had a stint at Utah State as well.
It's been nothing short of a miracle. Me and my family have loved every single bit of being here at BYU, the culture that BYU is, the coaches that Kalani has. It just embodies what you know, we want, me and my wife and our future family and our future kids just want in general and for a future for us. So that's just really who BYU is, and that's the ultimate decision why we came.
The best running back duo in the Big 12, if not the country. Woo, hoo, hoo, hoo. Some high praise for Sione Moa and obviously LJ Martin from Austin Leausa, but obviously they will not be able to be that without guys like him in front of them opening holes, and more importantly, also protecting a guy like Bear Bachmeier as BYU's quarterback. But I appreciate what Austin had to say, because as I said, it didn't come off as haughty. It didn't come off as him being like better than everybody else. No, you can tell he's a humble dude who's living his absolute dream, still playing the game he loves and plans on pursuing it at the professional level. I can respect every single bit about it. As I mentioned, he has been well-traveled as a football player. Southern Utah to Utah State, back to SUU, and then finally at BYU. It's not been an easy path that Austin Leausa has trod, but what he has brought to BYU, as I mentioned, is that versatility. He's got a strong mindset of what he wants to accomplish as a football player, and you can hear it in his voice when he talks about how much he loves and appreciates what BYU has been for him and his family. I don't think a single person within the sound of my voice or his voice is going to disagree with anything that young man had to say right there. And I sure as heck hope he's right about LJ Martin and Sione Moa being that elite tandem he believes them to be. Because if that's the case, a guy like Bear Bachmeier is going to be ultra comfortable in this offense, because it's going to be a hard running BYU football team that's going to be deadly on play action. And that's, in many respects, the easiest way to ease a first-time quarterback into an offense is give them easy throws off play action and the like. And the only way you do that is to have an elite running game. And that's the hope that Sione Moa, LJ Martin, they stay healthy. As I understand it last night, Enoch Nawahine and Preston Rex were both in street clothes at the scrimmage, so unfortunate that they weren't able to participate. But the hope is that they're back soon. And Hinkley Rapati also gets his waiver from the NCAA, which BYU is still waiting on. And that running game, it becomes electric. Remember back when Tyler Algier was just running wild on opposing defenses? That's what BYU's offense would love to be, is a hard-running team that they're just picking people off and making deep shot after deep shot on offense, because the play action is that deadly for an opposing defense. Be awesome to have it. And I think Austin Leausa, he is got some strong words, but at the same time, I think he's got the mindset to go out and, you know, as he's talking the talk, to walk the walk and prove it for the BYU football program. All right, we'll finish up today's show with what you guys want to talk about coming up next. A lot of questions coming from our Locked On Cougars Insider Group members, and we'll address as many, if not all of them, in the time remaining right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, and August 26th, everybody, it is officially FanDuel Futures Day. It's a brand new holiday for football fans who want to live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champion before week one even kicks off, this is your moment to take advantage of it. If you want to take a flyer on an MVP candidate, let's say you believe that Tua Tagovailoa, for example, is going to have a renaissance type year for his career. You can do all that. The best part is you can parlay your division winner dark horses into bigger money winnings if you pull it off. So visit the FanDuel app today and get started with our friends over at FanDuel. Plan your future bets now, because Future Day is only one day, August 26th, and you'll want to take advantage of this. It's one day only. Take advantage today, and it's all courtesy of your friends over at FanDuel, where you can play your game. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. If you have not done so already, sign up for the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. Get the inside scoop on all things BYU sports that I'm passing along. And the best part is it comes to your phone in the form of a text message. You're not having to go to a message board or log into a website to get the insider intel that you crave. It comes right to your phone, and you can fire back with thoughts of your own. And a number of you were at the scrimmage last night, and we're firing off thoughts via our Locked On Cougars Insider Group. So thank you to all of you for your support, and we encourage many more of you to sign up today. It's just $5 a month to be a part of the group, and you get a 14-day free trial to be a part of it as well. All right, on to the questions, on to the mailbag for this week. A lot of good stuff, so thank you to all of you who weighed in. I obviously appreciate everybody who takes time to be a part of the Insider Group, and more importantly, sends in their questions, because I know it takes time out of your day. But a lot of the questions deal with Bear Bachmeier. So Parley, I know you asked a question about Bear Bachmeier, his progress through fall camp. Damien, a similar question. So I think I already kind of addressed that earlier on in today's podcast, but let's just put it this way. Bear is like the ascension. It's just going up up and up and up and up and up and up. And if you heard Andrew Gentry, I think he was on BYU Sports Nation saying that he is not like your typical freshman quarterback. And a guy like Andrew Gentry knows a lot about quarterback play because he dealt with a number of situations during his time at Michigan. Some pretty high praise coming Bear Bachmeier's way. I think he's impressed everybody doing their thing. So other questions that come in. His brother, speaking of Tiger, this comes from Jason. I might be late with this. You actually fit in just in time. I haven't heard much about Tiger Bachmeier. How is he looking? What I have seen with my own eyes is that Tiger Bachmeier is kind of running with the twos for BYU, but I also think he's going to be a contributor in special teams. When you lose an All-American kick returner in Keelan Marion, you got to find options to replace him. I know that Tiger was more of a punt returner during his time at Stanford, but if you're a return guy, it's absolutely a weapon to have. And I think that's a way he can find his way onto the field, but he's running with the twos. And Fesi Sitake runs a pretty robust rotation at wide receiver. So I would expect you'll see Tiger Bachmeier on the field. As I understand it from a couple of people, including a couple people I talked about, Tiger actually caught a touchdown pass during practice last night from his brother. So that's obviously cool to see that play out. Let's see. Bill, any word from your sources or opinion from you on the leadership side of the QB battle? I'm curious if Bear is the type to assert himself as a young leader. Does the offense gravitate toward one or the other as a leader? I haven't necessarily heard directly on that, and I'm happy to dig more into it, Bill. But I think the thing is, I think when Andrew Gentry, as I mentioned, I think it was Sports Nation, he says that this kid's not like a lot of freshmen. He's come in, he's worked hard, he's put his time in. I think that he has ingratiated himself to his teammates, and they're bought in to what he's doing. And I think that may not be that assertive individual, like where he's barking at guys, nor does he need to be that right now. But if he comes in and just does his job, I love that. I love the fact that he comes in and does what he's supposed to do. All right, JC, I want some random tidbits on up-and-coming players. One I've always heard about is Sani Tuwala and how he is doing. I remember he played a year or so of football, but rugby prior. Now, Sani Tuwala was actually slated as a defensive tackle last year with the thought he'd bulk up maybe to 300 pounds. We got to camp this year. He'd slimmed down to 270 pounds. He's now playing defensive end. He is running with the reserves on that defensive line. I just think he still continues to kind of be a raw prospect, but you can see the physical tools in the guy. He's tall, he's long, he's athletic. I think it was a couple practices ago, I told the insider group that he had a nice PBE where he's got his hand up into a passing lane that had a tackle for loss, if not a whistle sack shortly thereafter. So there are flashes from guys like Sani Tuwala. So it's one to keep an eye on. Gil asked this: have you heard anything about Micah Kafusi, the little brother of Isaiah Kafusi? Obviously, he's doing his thing at linebacker. Gil, he is running with the reserves as well. He's probably right now with Micah kind of running that 2 range, maybe the top end of the 3s. That linebacking core is super deep. It's not that Micah Kafusi is not talented, because he is very talented. It just so happens that there are talented guys dotting that linebacking core, that it's a bumper crop of linebacking talent that BYU has right now. So Mike Kafusi, he's doing his thing, but it's kind of tough to emerge when you got top end guys like Isaiah Glasker, Jack Kelly, Che Brian Struther, Cialia Sarah, Ace Kafusi, his cousin, all doing really, really good things at linebacker. Who else? Miles Hall. There's a lot of guys. So yeah, I think Mike is doing just fine, but it's just kind of a tough deal. Morgan, kind of random. Can you explain what a nickelback is and how they're different from a regular corner? The best way to explain it is a nickelback is a hybrid safety corner. They come up and they play mainly against slot receivers and flexed out tight ends. They're not on the outside where true cornerbacks are playing against X or Z receivers. They're more covering slot receivers, as I mentioned, or tight ends. And usually they also provide extra run support because they're playing closer to the line. So that should explain what nickelback is. In the NFL, a lot of teams call them slot corners now as well. It's kind of an interchangeable term depending on the scheme you're running. But nickelbacks routinely are a little bit bigger than a slot corner. They're more safety sized and capable of doing, I think, more of a versatile role than a corner is. Jordan, what player are you most excited to watch this year? If I'm being honest, Bear Bachmeier. There's just a curiosity factor. Is the hype, is it going to match the substance, all that type of stuff? Or is it going to fall flat on its face and BYU is going to be miserable? And both sides of that are very possible. I'm excited to watch him. I'm also very excited to watch LJ Martin. I think that LJ, should he stay healthy, is poised to have a major major year this year. And obviously it would be a big boon to BYU's offense to have him do just that. So keep an eye on those two guys, but I really like those two. Outside of quarterback, this comes from Derek. What do you think is the most important or entertaining position battle going on right now? Good question. I would say defensive end. Guys like Hunter Clegg, Bodie Schoonover, Logan Latui, Kinalau Fonohema. Like, there's a lot of guys. Ephraim Asiata. Man, I go down the list of the different defensive ends BYU's got in that unit. It's a lot of youth. There is some veterans, like I mentioned, Logan Latui and Bodie Schoonover, but beyond that, a lot of freshmen and sophomores, they're looking to assert themselves. And I think that's a group that should be one that should be fun to watch. So, yeah, defensive ends are the one I would pay attention to. Matthew Staples, what are your thoughts on the second string O-line? How deep are we really there? I think BYU's offensive line's got a lot of potential in it. Now, there's a lot of youth in that second unit. Andrew Williams, if I'm not mistaken, is he a true freshman or a redshirt freshman? He's the backup left tackle from what I've observed. You got guys like Trevin Osler, who's been around this program for 4 years now, running to the guard spots. Trevor Pay, I've seen him running with the twos at center, replacing his older brother in respect, and Connor taking over that center spot. Caden Chittister, who comes from Richfield, if I recall correctly, he's been running at right tackle. I think there's a lot of potential, but it's inexperienced and youthful in that second line, but the talent is very, very evident. Tyson, what is the realistic timeline for BYU to win a national championship again in football? That's a good question. With the transfer portal, NIL, I'd like to say like 5 years, but I would say like a decade maybe. I know that may not be what you want to hear, but you got to build up a roster and you have to be able to compete with the who's who of college football, and that takes time. BYU's recruiting class this year in 2026 is pretty downright elite. It's probably the best ever in BYU football history. But if they truly want to win a national title, they got to go beyond this and continue to land even better classes in terms of recruits than they are currently in what is a really, really elite class. So, yeah, it's going to probably take a decade, in my opinion, to really get up there. That's my personal opinion on how long it should take. Jeez, this is awesome. Some great questions. Some thoughts on the Big 12 squad and roasting my good buddy JT Wister-Silver at Locked On Utes. Let's see. Who are the offensive linemen on this team that are most likely to be drafted next spring? That comes from Edwin. The number one guy, Waylon Lapuaho. Waylon is absolutely capable of being drafted. And I also think that a guy like Isaiah Jota should have a strong year, is also a candidate. Andrew Gentry's kind of a fringe guy. I think he's got another year of eligibility beyond this, so he may stick around for another year. But the number one guy by far, Waylon Lapuaho, in terms of draftable offensive linemen. Bryce, if Bear gets the starting line, do you think he'll have a long or short leash? I will say fairly long, because you're not going to put that guy in there and then yank him out of the first sign of trouble. That would just absolutely be the wrong way to handle this. And I think Aaron Roderick's smart enough to realize that and be more likely to let him play through some mistakes and understand that, yeah, BYU is going to take some lumps along the way with a kid like that. Let's see. Other questions here. I have a question for the mailbag. This comes from Brock. He says, since the future competition in the next few years looks to be high for players battling for playing time, battling for positions, which players do you anticipate will leave the program due to competition? They can be current players or high school commits. Brock, I can give you a list of names that I would consider, but in this day and age of the transfer portal, that list could be 150% wrong, and it could be a whole list of other guys who decide to leave. This is a transient sport anymore. I know that ruins it for some people. A lot of people have checked out saying, I just can't watch college football like I did, because it's a band of mercenaries in a way when guys come in and out of the transfer portal and playing for money. But it's tough to, like I said, I could put a list in front of you, but it feels foolhardy at this point, because everybody on that list could stick around and make me look like a fool, and the whole other group of guys could be fed up and decide to bolt on the flip side of it. The guys that I would have thought were going to stick around. Ooh, this is an interesting one from Josh. If you were tasked with coming up with a new color scheme and mascot for BYU, what would you choose? Oh my goodness. I had never really considered this, Josh. They've been the Cougars for literally decades. The blue and white's iconic, especially the royal blue. But okay, if I can have a new color scheme, I would go black would be a primary color. I just love black. I don't know. It's just personal preference. But man, I don't know. Let me get back to you on that. I have to consider that strongly. Maybe the Fighting Brighams. I don't know, for the nickname. I'll throw it back to you. What do you want to see, Josh? Anybody else out there? Weigh in. What would you like to see? If you were to rebrand BYU athletics, BYU football, new logo, new iconography, new color scheme, all that stuff. Let me know what you think. Also, that's this. Around this time of year, I always like to play a little game. It goes like this. If things go really well this year, it'll be because blank. And if things go really poorly this year, it'll be because blank. Would love to hear your thoughts. If things go really well this year, it's because Bear Bachmeier is him. That if he is him, BYU is going to be just fine, and they're set up for future success for multiple years in a row. If things go really poorly this year, it'll be because the running game faltered. Health, ineffective offensive line play. If it falters there, that's the issue you have to consider there. I do wonder about that. Let's see. Andy, good question here. What ratio percentage of the offense struggling would you attribute to a new quarterback? And what percentage would you put on the defense being so stellar, if that makes sense, speaking about training camp? I would say it's more about the defense being stellar at this point, but the offense does have to do its part. He also adds this. I also want to hear your opinion if there needs to be a flagship university for the Big 12. He continues on, but TLDR says, does the Big 12 need Ohio State and Alabama? In time, they do, but they don't need it right now. You've got to allow that to grow organically. And from my vantage point, BYU's got to aspire to be just that. Create yourself into a national brand that people renown, and that absolutely needs to be something BYU aspires to be. Will it take time? 110%. It would take a long time, not a long time, but it would take time to build that rep. But with BYU's fan base, the resources we hear that they have everything they're capable of becoming that. Texas Tech has aspirations of that. We've seen that. Kansas just got a $300 million gift from one of their prominent boosters. There's money flowing around in the Big 12. So BYU's got to do their part as well. Let's see. A couple other questions here before we go on today's show. Okay, I'm not going to answer this one from Landon. Which child is your favorite? I love all three of my kids equally, Landon. Okay? Don't try to get me in trouble here. Pin me down on that. And then also, this is a good one. Where did that go? Oh, shoot. I just scrolled past it. I kind of laid these out, but I laid them out in the wrong order because I kind of just hopped around. Oh, right here. Caleb, what are your opinions on the movie Hitch? Great question. I love Hitch. It's one of my favorite movies. I saw it in theaters when it came out years and years ago, and the allergic reaction scene where he's literally got a straw thing of Benadryl. Never get over that. And obviously the home base with the dancing. Yeah, you guys get it if you've seen it. And then one last thing. I'm gonna read this out loud because I appreciate the compliment here. It comes from Kevin Hatch. Kevin, we need to find out if we're related, but he says this. Jake, are you busy at your daytime job at KSL? I'll answer that. Yes, I am. He says, I do not know how you have time to do all that you do. You are one amazing dude. You know what, Kevin? Thank you for that. I appreciate it. I am lucky to do what I do. It's a labor of love. And I also just appreciate you guys are patrons of this podcast. It's the long and short of it. I'm lucky to have the support I do. And okay, well, let's just lift the lid on this right now. There have been a handful of you out there, both outside the Insiders Group and some of you inside the Insiders Group, who have asked if I need more support for this podcast. To be honest, I don't, because this podcast is doing extremely well. Just trust me when I say that it is doing better than I ever in my dreams ever anticipated it doing. If you would like to support the show more fully and you want to do it monetarily, I'm not going to say no to that, but I'm also reticent to do it. So it's kind of trust me, I've gotten Brady, RJ, who else? Ethan has reached out. Those are the Insider Group members that I can think of off the top of my head. Honestly, I appreciate you guys just being here on the podcast. And the best thing you guys can do, besides like becoming an official sponsor of the show and the like, is just simply put, watch every show. We talk about being everydayers. I don't know how much more. I say it all the time. Thank you for being every day on this podcast. Those of you who watch this podcast every day, if there were 2 more of you who did that, this podcast would be absolutely flying. And it's flying right now. I'm just saying, it would just like, talk about like a rocket ship. It'd go absolutely ballistic. So that's the best thing you guys can do to support this show. Yeah. If you guys want to help out financially with it, great. I'm not going to say no. You can reach out. We can talk further about options to do just that. But honestly, the support of the show and what it's become, I'm lucky because very few podcasts and very few podcast networks like what the Locked On Podcast Network have built here. It's pretty incredible what they have done. And I am lucky to be a part of it. I'm lucky to be the host of this podcast. Let's see, today is August 15th. We're under 2 weeks away from the 7-year anniversary of this show. 7 years. Let's just put it this way. When I started doing this show, my now 7-year-old son was just barely born. He was literally a newborn when I started doing this. He's grown up his entire life with his dad, knowing his dad did a podcast, and he literally can quote the intro to the show verbatim. It's kind of a both scary and awesome thing at the same time, but I'm going to stop bloviating here because I've gone way over time. But truthfully, it does mean a lot. Kevin, thank you for that compliment. And those of you who have offered to support the show more heavily in terms of dollars and cents, if you want to do that, as I said, reach out via email, social media. We can talk more about options that way. But truthfully, everything you guys have done with this podcast, the support you have lent it, literally we're at 7 years. Wow. It's flown by. But the support you guys have given this show, it means the absolute world to me, and I do not take it for granted. I will also say that I do not take for granted 1 second that I have as successful a podcast as I do, but it's not because of me. It's because of y'all. So thank you, truthfully, for all your support. So as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. And once again, more of you hopefully will do this, become a true everydayer, and join us every single day right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.